Up next, we're going to hear about the new work world reimagined. And our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, comes with 16 plus years of experience in research, consulting, and business development across various technology domains, sectors, clientele, and geographies. He brings rich skills in liaising with C-suite and also in enabling numerous conversations across the various genres of technology. His expertise lies in technology convergence, market entry and geographical expansion, product strategy and planning, and in-depth market assessments and forecasts for new and emerging technologies in the ICT space, such as cloud computing, data center, IoT, and enterprise telecom. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the stage Mr. Apalak Ghosh, founder and chief analyst, Teal. Could we welcome him with a round of applause, please?
Thank you so much, Rebecca. You make me sound very nice. Yeah. Very warm welcome to everyone. An absolute pleasure having all of you. I'll share the next 25 minutes with all of you, sharing my experience as an analyst. And I've been an analyst for a while now. And I think one of the privileges of being an analyst is you get to sit on the fence. I get access to what the supply ecosystem talks about. I understand why it's getting used at the end user's side of the spectrum. I think a common feature between me and you is you help in understanding both sides of the spectrum. An OEM or a vendor success largely depends on people like you, and the end customer that you are supporting has a heavy reliance on what you entail and help him about, right? So whatever limited I have understood of this technology market is thanks to folks like you. And in my next 25 minutes, I'll kind of try to walk you through our findings as an organization, right? So this animation kind of gives you, in a very simple manner, what hybrid work is trying to achieve, right? You see a man walking in from his home, going to his office, but I wish in true life, in reality, it was as seamless as this. As you can see, there's no traffic out here, right? But I guess in reality, it's not as smooth as this is, but that's the vision of the future of work, right? So moving ahead, when we speak about any transformation, we talk about digital transformations. And I think we thought, everybody seems to speak about digital transformation. There's not much that one can really speak about when we talk about digital transformation, but we wanted to understand why does an organization take up digital transformation, right? So we tried to bucketize it into three key aspects of an organization taking up any transformation program. One, when you talk about business, right, you tend to focus about their strategy. The strategy is broken into tactical measures, and to enable this strategy and tactical measures, you need stakeholders, right? Employees, customers, partners, suppliers, helping achieve that. So this is how it maps up. And in my experience, what I've seen is, over the last couple of years, particularly from the pandemic, there's been a lot of emphasis on the internal stakeholder, right? Because, for instance, when we talk about any digital transformation initiative, and my next slide would corroborate on this, when we talk about any digital transformation initiative, usually the customer is at the center. And I'm not saying that this number has changed. If you clearly see, improved customer experience still rules roost, right? It's the most pivotal aspect of any transformation initiative. But what surprises me here, right, is you see on the right, employee productivity and employee experience suddenly comes up trump as a very, very important lever of digital transformation. Having said so, if you look at processes like business agility, process transformation, or operations efficiency, which are part of your tactical measures or business strategy directives, not to say that they're not important, but what has come up trump is around the entire workspace transformation. And I'll tell you why. For instance, if you look at how workforce has changed, there's a fundamental shift in how we look at work, right? Compare this to what we used to see, say, 3 years back to what it is now and going forward. So typically, when we talk about a typical regular working environment, most of us used to go to office, right? I mean, I can hear the number suggest 85%. I think that's also a fairly conservative number given India as a market. probably it would be upwards of 90%, right? With most of us going to offices, and considering because most of us were going to offices, right, we never really had to worry so much about, security at a remote work environment. Because typically a lot of money was spent around perimeter security, which is securing your data center, right? And considering these two aspects, hence we didn't have any standardization, as far as remote work enablement goes, right? So, but you compare that with the expectations that we have going forward. See the kind of questions that people are asking, whether it's a shift of a new job or a current employee. The kind of questions that I ask now to my employees: will I get flexibility the way I work? Will I get a consistent experience across an in-office work environment and a remote work environment, right? Do I need to manage multiple applications, and is my work environment secure enough? These are questions which we never had to ponder upon, which is why, to a large extent, you see the bufferage in terms of why employee experience matters more, right? But having said so, when we talk about hybrid, hybrid has two typical connotations. One is a remote work, and the second is an in-office experience. In our view, I think remote work also has transformed over the years. So how we've mapped remote work at Teal is like this. So if you look at the first two phases of remote work, they were primarily centered around cost advantage and tapping available talent. So for instance, you're based out of Bangalore, you have a certain pool of talent which is based out of Mumbai, and you want access to that talent, and you help them achieve that by allowing them to work from a remote environment, right? But that's changed during the pandemic. But it was as good as having a business continuity measurement. Because if you did not allow us to work from our homes, work would have come to a standstill, right? So I think that's a fundamental shift of how we look at remote work. And the fourth phase, which is what the industry calls it a new normal, which is no more a new normal anymore. And God forbid, pandemic doesn't strike us the way it has struck in the last 2 years. I think what is important for us is to build upon phase 3, which is going beyond what is obvious, and which is going beyond the business continuity measurement, and trying to focus on work sustainability. Because I'll tell you why, because the next slide kind of focuses on this. So and we spoke to employees, because at the end of the day, the concept of hybrid work will only succeed if both the employee and the employer both see success. So if you see from an employer's point of view and an employee's perspective, both seem to find remote work has been successful. And I'll tell you why, because a large number of organizations, almost 71% that we reviewed, said that productivity actually has increased, right? So which is a great number. Typically, it is called out that numbers don't lie. But if you think through on this, when we talk that 71% of organization polls seem to suggest that productivity has increased, but does it come at a cost? If you think on this, yes, productivity has increased, but I think it has also come at a cost. I mean, last year we saw it as a year of mass resignation, particularly in the IT sector. Year of mass resignation, there were a lot of fatigue, right? A lot of mass movement from one company to the other. So I guess when we talk about the metrics of success, need not necessarily be productivity. It has to be sustainable. Having said so, it's very important to understand when we talk about hybrid work, right? Remote work is a key metrics, but the office isn't dead, right? I'll give you my personal experience from my life. For instance, my wife is right now in between jobs, right? And she's shifting from one firm to another. And we have 2 children at home. And one of the asks that she had from her new organization was, can I work from office at least 2 days a week? The reason why she asked is because when we talk about flexibility, see, flexibility changes its meaning, what it is now, vis-a-vis what it was earlier. See, 3 years back, when we spoke about flexibility, it was, do I have the option of working from home? Now it's just a reversal of things. Now people are asking, do I have the flexibility of working out of office as well? Flexibility is nothing but a freedom of choice, and also everything has two sides of it, right? When you have an office, an organization has its reasons why it wants to have its office, and it also corresponds equally by why employees want to go to offices. And if you see on the left is what an organization really regards as important to have an office, whereas on the right, for instance, you talk about training and career development. Obviously, an employee will think on their whims and likes, whereas on the left, most organizations work for profit, right? So there's a reason why they want to foster and continue having an office setup, right? So when we talk about a hybrid work environment, I think we kind of bifurcate it into 4 key elements. Obviously, like what we have heard from between you and Rajendra, right? Very important to have a secure work environment, provide them with anytime, anywhere flexibility, but very importantly, because if you look at the ones marked in green, these are the hard-coded elements. Nothing new here, right? We're talking about let's have a secure workplace, let's allow them to work from anytime, anywhere. But what is important and very coming up is the fact that we want a more inclusive work experience and long-term work sustainability. So I guess somewhere I think the fact that employee becomes the pivotal fact of changing how work of the future it talks about kind of focuses on that you have to make the right choice. It's not just about what I get out of productivity, but how do I balance between technology and the people element, right? So when you look at the objectives that a hybrid work environment really sets apart, right, that kind of cascades into some of the key objectives that leads to technology adoption, right? Not to mention that these are the only, obviously, tech solutions which help you achieve these objectives, but keeping today's discussion in mind, we try to focus on 3 key areas, one being VDI, the other being ADC, and the last but not least is DaaS. Like I said, I've tracked the cloud virtualization market for a fair bit of time, right? Before we started Teal, I used to work for IDC and then at Frost. And what I've seen is when we talk about, especially VDI, the best analogy is like the phoenix. It has literally risen from the ashes. You see how, because VDI essentially never never had a very big uptake as far as Indian market goes. Confined to a few industries, and the use cases were fairly limited. I think, for a lack of a better word or term, I think the pandemic actually was the biggest use case for VDI because it helped you secure business continuity, supported anytime, anywhere flexibility. But we also know that VDI has its sets of challenges, right? Which is where the entire element of DaaS kicks in. Because you have to understand what Rajendra very clearly mentioned. It is important to understand that it is not a right comparison between VDI and a DaaS, because what essentially you want is you want to champion the what VDI really stands for, but you don't want to take the headaches of managing a VDI, which essentially is what DaaS helps us in achieving. But and at the same time, when we look at the ADC piece, which was essentially in its initial avatar was focused around server load balancing, I think goes beyond just server load balancing, and we talk about primarily the end user experience because of application acceleration, right? So it's a network and mesh of service offering which helps you achieve what you've tried to vision. And last but not least, very importantly, when we talk about the congruence, of traditional technologies with vis-a-vis emerging technologies, like we discussed in our previous discussion, security is at the core. And as we know, regardless of whether we talk about virtualization, we talk about collaboration, or we talk about any new emerging technology, security will be sitting right in the middle, right? In collaboration with collapse suits and virtualization. But I guess when we talk about the future of work, I mean, since we're talking about future cannot be static, right? It has to be relevant with the times that we live in. What is relevant now may be obsolete going forward. So to encompass the overall objective of future work, if you see it corroborates with new technologies with the traditional being set in. Technology like edge, AR, VR, analytics, automation, and cloud helps you achieve more. And this is not an opportunity just for the end customer, but it also gives you huge opportunity from our vendor ecosystem as well, because this enables and fosters what we're really trying to envision. And so it sums up to what does it mean to all of you, and this is, I'll be very mindful of this. This is not a set of recommendation what ThinkTin is trying to give you. We are far too experienced to know, all of this. This is purely basis our talking points when we speak to CIOs, right? These are some of the areas that were culled out. Because when we asked them, what are their expectations from a partner community? This is what came out. For instance, when we talk about 24/7 after-sales support, end-to-end one-stop support, I think these are fairly known notionalities. But I think what at least I found interesting was providing proof of concept to potential customers. This is something which was not so commonly heard, say, 3-4 years back. This is finding more reverence now. And also, I think, and then we'll have a workshop going forward once we're through with the key sessions for today. This comes up during my workshop as well, is extending a flexible payment terms and conditions to enterprises. We'd love to understand what does it mean. When we talk about extending payment terms, are we talking about setting certain expectations for the customer, so on and so on? Because at the end, I think you have an extremely pivotal role in bridging the gap between the vendor ecosystem and the end customers, right? So I guess with this, I'll probably call it out. What I have at the end is, we've created a white paper only for you all, right, which kind of summarizes the presentation and gives you a walkthrough as to how ThinkTin looks at workflow modernization. It's a QR code. You can probably scan it through your respective smartphone cameras and download this white paper, right? So that's it from my end. Thank you so much, and I look forward to hosting you for the workshop.